Hi and good evening. I want to thank you all for joining us today for our session on accessibility.
Just wait for the attendees, for all the attendees.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sharon,
Yes.
do I just ask them to put the questions in the Q&A box? And also to, maybe I'll just tell them to do the question. Let me.
Whatever you prefer.
Here, I'll introduce you. Matai Latril? Ariel?
You can start. You can, yes.
Okay. Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We're pleased to welcome you to the first conference on accessibility in ancient and historic sites and cities, sponsored by the Tower of David Museum. My name is Rose Genosar, and I just want to go through a few technical matters with you. We welcome your questions, so please, in the Q&A box, you can write your questions. We hope that at the end of these fascinating presentations, we'll be able to answer at least some of them. Also, CC captioning, closed captioning is available. If you would like it, just press the CC icon on your screen. It will press it on show options. It will then show hide options, and you will be able to have the CC. And remember, at the end of this session, when we close the session, everyone will be taken out of the session. You can use the same link to turn on and reconnect with the next session. And now I would like to introduce Sharon Dinur, who is the head of the preservation department of the Jerusalem municipality here in Israel. Sharon, bakasha.
Hi, and good evening, at least here. I want to thank you all for joining us today to our session on accessibility in historic cities, practical solution to improve access in historical urban environment. So as you heard, my name is Sharon Dinur, and I'm an architect, and I'm also the head of the preservation department at Jerusalem municipality. Our daily job is dealing constantly with the conflict between preservation and accessibility, especially in the places where we want the public to enjoy the unique architecture and our unique stories. The situation gets even more complicated outside of the old city of Jerusalem, because we have a quite large historic cities that surround the old city of Jerusalem, and the development doesn't stop. It's not a museum. So a lot of people are going to use the city center, and we want it to keep develop. And this is a kind of conflict that we really, it's in our everyday life. And today we have three great presentations. I'm looking forward to hear and to learn from it. The first one will be architect Katerina Papamichail from INAT Board of Directors in Greece. Hi, Katerina.
Hello, hello. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be with you.
And the second one, thank you, will be Valerie Fletcher, Executive Director from the Institute for Human-Centered Design, Boston, USA. Hi, Valerie. Okay, I hope she can hear us.
I can hear you.
Finally, yeah. Yes, cool.
Thank you, Sharon.
Finally, we have Regina Cohen. She's an architect and associate research in the School of Architecture and Urbanism, Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Before we start with the presentation, and hi, Regina. Before we start with our presentation.
Thanks for the invitation. Nice to be here with you.
Thank you. We are so happy. Before we start with our presentation, I would like to show you a short film about accessibility in the old city of Jerusalem. Let's start.
All people with disabilities can now walk the entire Via Dolorosa in Jerusalem. 12 years after work began, the old city of Jerusalem is now fully accessible. Thanks to the provision of special infrastructure and mobility solutions, people with special needs can now access all the holy sites, as well as restaurants and stores, and discover the city's history. In particular, ramps allow the passage of wheelchairs, but also of mini-cars and special emergency vehicles. Tourists love this development, which encourages them to visit the old city. A Muslim visits Al-Aqsa, a Jew visits the Western Wall and a Christian visits the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This has created a very comfortable atmosphere for people with special needs, the elderly and even tour guides. With more than 1 billion people with various types of disabilities worldwide, the Old City of Jerusalem is making strides towards them for welcome and accessibility. We find ramps in the Holy Sepulchre Square, which were placed by Christian communities so that people with disabilities can reach the basilica. At the entrance to the basilica, people with disabilities can ask for assistance to get over the step. There is in fact a movable ramp that can be placed at the entrance if needed, and is usually located behind the doorway. The Old City of Jerusalem is accessible to people with physical disabilities. The area includes the Jewish quarter and the square in front of the Western Wall, considered the holiest place for the Jewish people, reserved for prayer, but occasionally used for religious and patriotic gatherings. This place constantly attracts crowds of tourists, visitors and pilgrims from all over the world. In the Muslim quarter and at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the 3 most visited mosques in the world and a pilgrimage destination for Muslims, ramps have been installed to facilitate access. These are also present at the door for non-Muslim visitors to allow entry to the esplanade. A guidance system for the blind has also been developed and installed. A free application provides them with audio information based on their choice and location to receive service or reach their desired destination. With 10 million tourists visiting the Old City of Jerusalem, today it can be said that Jerusalem is the most accessible historical city in the world.
We enjoyed the visual. Let's start. Katerina, are you ready?
Yes. Yes, I'm ready.
Give us the honor. Thank you.
Okay.
Go to share. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Oops. Okay. Can you see my screen now? It's okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay.
Start.
So, again, thank you for this invitation and for this interesting subject. My presentation is about improving accessibility for all to the historical center of Athens and access to the Acropolis of Athens. Just a minute. Okay, I found it, how it works. So what was the starting point for improving accessibility? Athens, as you know, is an historical city with a rich cultural heritage going back over 2,500 years. Accessibility of the historical monuments and all the archaeological sites for many years was not a priority, really. But in 1997, when Athens submitted its bid to host the Olympic and Paralympic Games, the Greek state, fortunately, made a promise to make Acropolis UNESCO World Heritage Site accessible for all. So accessibility became a key factor in all the project works and for all improvements. 2 major integrated projects took place. Access to the Acropolis, which was an outstanding achievement, together with a new 5-kilometer pedestrian walkway, realizing the so-called unification of the historical sites in the center of Athens. The unification project was an important intervention, transforming heavily trafficked streets of the historical center into a walkable historical route, thereby supporting access also to Acropolis. What was that project? The unification of Athens archaeological sites was included in the City of Athens General Urban Plan, addressing the promotion of the historical character of Athens and the upgrading of its central area, and the improvement of the quality of life for all the residents and the protection of the natural environment. So the key targets of the plan included the upgrading of Athens' central areas with emphasis on the conservation of their historical character. And on the map on the right-hand side, you can see that this is shown with the orange line, this area, this walkway. Another target was the removal of motor traffic. Another one is prioritizing pedestrian access. And lastly, public transportation connections, which is the key to achieve the access to all these areas. So, and you see, as you see in this diagram, what Athens tried to do is creating a chain of accessibility, because accessibility is a chain of its own. So the new pedestrian walkway is the unifying element which joins the monuments in the historical center, while the public transport system, which you can see here in this diagram as a triangle with the black dot line, with its various transport modes, connects and allows access to the center from the outer areas of the city. Just talking about transport, I just want to mention that a major project was the new Athens Metro, which really changed the life in the city. But in such an historical place, when you dig and you want to do new projects, it's impossible not to have findings, archaeological findings. So the excavations for the Athens metro system also revealed thousands of ancient objects, which are now exhibited in the stations of the historical center. Some of the stations are a museum of its own. Just to mention about accessibility, all stations are wheelchair accessible with lifts and step-free access, and tactile routes are provided to guide blind and partially sighted passengers. About the project of itself, the joining the archaeological sites, how it was created, a continuous walking route was created, joining the public spaces and linking all the significant cultural and archaeological landmarks of Athens. Asphalt roadways for cars were replaced with cobblestones to evoke a traditional character, and a continuous tactile route for guiding blind persons was included in the paving, and this was done by following extensive consultation with blind persons. Just to mention, and the weak point, a smooth stone path at that time was not included in the walkway, which would have given more comfort to many users, such as wheelchair users, parents with pushchairs, and those with walking difficulties, following a more universal design approach. And we hope it might be done in the future. But nevertheless, there is this pedestrian walkway, which is easily accessed by people, and many of the citizens, the visitors, can now move freely throughout the new way and enjoy visiting the historical centers of the city and really enjoy Athens. Just to show you with these pictures, on the left-hand side, you can see the streets, how they were before with all the traffic, and on the right-hand side, how they are today, a pedestrian route. Everybody enjoys, everybody, especially at the weekends, they have a great time. As I mentioned, major historical sites were joined. I just want to briefly mention some. The Odeon of Herodes Atticus Theatre, what is called Herodion, which is a main landmark and the great facility for the Athens Festival every year. The Keramikos Ancient Cemetery along the Sacred Way, which is a very important historical site, but also the new Acropolis Museum, which was built on columns, because on the excavations under the museum, again, there are many findings which are now visitable for people to visit both the museum and the excavations. And of course, this project, the unification, gave access to the Acropolis. I mean, it enabled reaching the entrance of Acropolis. For decades, this access to the Acropolis, of course, it's very important because this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the symbol of Greek civilization. For decades, the only access to the top was by a steep, twisting footpath with many steps. Access was difficult and even dangerous in wet, slippery conditions, and of course, it was impossible for wheelchair users. The first intervention was made in 2004 due to the Greek state's promise for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. For a long time, there had been an exploration of all possible solutions. And of course, many objections had been expressed. Finally, a solution was reached by constructing a lift, open type without a well, which was installed on the north slope of the Acropolis to a new section of the wall, which was made in the 1930s. The lift solution, which would carry one disabled visitor in a wheelchair and their companion, in addition to the lift operator, was carefully planned and executed as a reversible intervention with minimal intrusion, because there was a lot of debate about this. This intervention has broken the boundaries, in fact, of what was considered up to that time possible in adapting heritage sites, resulting in worldwide recognition that people with disabilities have right to visit and enjoy cultural heritage sites on equal terms with others. Through the recent years, access to the Acropolis is recognized as fundamental for all visitors and part of the city's identity. So the first temporary lift was replaced with a larger, purpose-built lift in year 2021. Also, a wider new pathways for improving the visitability of the monument for people with disabilities and all visitors have been reconstructed. The previous paths were narrow, obliging visitors to walk also on the slippery rocks, which presented hazards, as you can see a part that is left in the circled with the red line. So the new paving provides now a smooth and non-slip surface, also protecting the rock itself and the archaeological remains. A specific concrete was chosen as aesthetically acceptable and resembling an artificial stone. What needs to be highlighted also is that a special membrane is inserted between the new material and the rock surface, making it the solution fully reversible. Also, representatives of disability organizations were consulted and involved in testing the new paving. So just concluding about this project, Athens today is a more attractive, accessible, and sustainable environment where everyone can move around more easily and reach main attractions and archaeological sites. What is important to mention is that decision makers, planners, and designers are now aware of the challenges, but also how accessibility can be achieved. They see the preservation of monuments, accessibility, and good urban design can go hand in hand with a good outcome. And I think we have learned a lot of the experience of Athens, which gave us a background to work for other projects. Where were the key steps to achieve accessibility? And I believe it's a key step for other historical areas. First, and most of all, is the decision by public authorities to make access a priority. Second is working as a team, transforming and communicating knowledge and expertise to different actors and involving users. And of course, lastly, applying universal design as much as possible and standards for accessibility. And finishing the presentation, talking about standards, I just wanted to mention the new guidance document, the ISO standard 5727, published on 2024, is about accessibility of immovable cultural heritage, general principles and methodology for interventions. This standard, I think it's very, very interesting. I was involved in the development of this standard, and it deals with the challenges, how to combine and respect the heritage values, and the accessibility requirements and how to develop the best possible solutions, what methodology to follow, because of course, every heritage site has its own challenges, its own problems to face, and its own identity. And just to mention again also that in this standard, there is an annex with some examples of good practice from all over the world. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Katerina. It was so interesting to hear you. I think we have a lot of resemblance between our cities, topography-wise, and also the different layers of archaeology and different story. Each layer have another story to tell. And also the love for cats, we also share that. And I just wanted to say that we're making a lot of effort in making Jerusalem accessible and still keep the design in high quality. And I think you can see it if you ever, I don't know if you've ever been to Jerusalem. And anyway, I think it's something we should all should consider as architects. It's the matter of reversible. I mean, if it's reversible, then it's much easier to get the right decision. So thank you so much, Valerie. Are you ready? Continuing.
It says unable to start video.
We have a support here.
I had originally planned to do it myself and then said, could you do it for me, fearing I could have a computer problem.
The show will do, just open your video.
Should I open my video myself or no? Okay. Okay. And you're going to advance the slides soon. Perfect. Okay. So I am actually focusing on our home, which is historic Boston, which is Boston, Massachusetts in the United States. Our work as an international NGO takes us across the nation and across the world. So it has been an interesting discipline to focus on my hometown, which is often a frustration. One is always very frustrated by home. And it's difficult to follow the Acropolis. But Katerina, we're absolutely delighted to see your presentation. Next slide, please. So a little bit of context. What am I talking about? So many of you know the United States, and Massachusetts is our state. And its capital is Boston. And our neighbor, our adjacent neighbor, that divided only by a river, is Cambridge, Massachusetts, which we often think of as one urban area. And I do want to just make a nod that this city has been around for a long time based on American standards. But 1630 is a lot later than the Acropolis and Athens. However, I do want to make the point that our name, Massachusetts, is an Indian name taken from a tribe that was based here in Boston. And that tribe was in place for 12,000 years. So it's important to just make note of that. And Cambridge was founded essentially at the same time as Boston, about 1630. Massachusetts has the oldest constitution in the US. So by US standards, we're a fairly old place. Next, please. And I'm going to quickly go through a variety of examples, but I'm going to start with something that has been referenced. There is no such thing as grandfathering, and our most rigorous standard is the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. And there has been an oddly persistent belief that somehow historic properties were grandfathered and were somehow removed from responsibilities for accessibility. That is not true. It is a challenge of finding a balance between accessibility and historic preservation. Next, please. And I have a collection of Saul Steinberg and his yes, but wonderful cartoons from the New Yorker over the years. This is just a reminder. Who are we talking about? Who are we designing for when we're talking about accessibility? And I'm only using my own state here, but it is a reflection that in the United States, where we have, among many things we don't do very well, we do very good counting of disability. an analysis of what constitutes disability. And here in Massachusetts, the most common reason for disability is a spectrum of brain-based issues. It's referred to by the CDC at the federal government as cognitive, but it's really a spectrum of mental health, neurodiversity, brain injury, dementia, very varied. It is now the #1 reason for disability in America. And here in Massachusetts, what had been until about 10 years ago, the most consistently dominant reason for disability is mobility. And that's inevitably what we pay a lot of attention to on historic. But a reminder here that wheelchair users are about 1/10 of the people who are counted in the United States in the mobility category. 10 times more have difficulty walking. And I'm going to turn to our oldest building that is a residential building in downtown Boston. This is in our north end. 1680 it was built. It belonged to the silversmith Paul Revere, if you know American history, famous for a midnight ride during the Revolutionary War. This building was neglected for a very long time, and it was fairly quickly after the initial renovation, next please, that they decided that they needed to really tackle physical accessibility to the building. And the only way that was going to happen is if they acquired an adjacent building, basically a tenement that was behind the Paul Revere house. But that was successfully done, and I'm crediting the architects that actually managed to pull this off. But it is about as seamless as one can get for a small building that was certainly never conceived to be accessible. And the outdoor environment is also accessible from the street. Next, please. And I want to do a shout out to the Paul Revere Museum because they have made a great deal of effort in having a multi-sensory exhibit experience. Their director has been a devoted champion of inclusive design, and they are constantly evolving that. So this is typical of places that are getting it right. Next, please. Our State House in Massachusetts is a very important architectural phenomenon designed by Charles Bulfinch, really the most significant first architect in the United States. And it's on the top of Beacon Hill, opened in 1798. And as you can see, it has a gold leaf capital. It's a long way from the Acropolis, but it is our particular treasure. Next, please. And this is a fairly recent renovation from 2019, and it's fairly subtle. This is obviously a very grand space. The president's rostrum was made to be accessible, physically accessible, while preserving its historical frontispiece. The chamber's large curved desks were all raised to accommodate wheelchair users who might sit in any one of these desks. And acoustics is an enormous problem in buildings of this vintage. And the acoustical panels were really an effort to manage the acoustical conditions, and they are seamlessly nested within the concave recess between the dome ribs of the chamber. Next, please. But I want to also call out how important it is that it be constant. And I was pleased that Katerina was talking about a 12-year commitment at the Acropolis. This is a photo of our governor, Maura Healey, and a man who has been the ADA coordinator at the State House for 17 years. That is Carl Richardson. And he is blind, and actually he has significant hearing loss. And he and his service animals are a major influence on how people think about accessibility in our State House. So we have worked with him on projects related to wayfinding, stairways, lighting, toilet rooms, elevators, and acoustics. Next, please. And I wouldn't want to leave out our ancient university, ancient by American terms. This was the first university in America, founded in 1636. And this is just a couple of bits of evidence of the university picking away at their most important buildings to make them accessible and find that balance with maintaining the glory of the historic significance of these buildings. So these are just a couple of examples of beveled threshold when it used to be a 4-inch step. Instead of a couple of stairs, it is now a ramp. This is University Hall. Next, please. And this is another building, one of its older buildings, Loeb House, 1892. It is a major site for events. And the landscape was re-sloped to create a completely level entrance. This used to be multiple steps up to that front door, and a very subtle change. It was a front door with equal-sized leaves that was replaced by a door that is 2/3 and 1/3. So there's plenty of room for people to get in an accessible door, and when there's an event, they can much more easily bring things in by opening both doors. Next, please. And here is a project that is actually rather dear to my heart. We were actually the architects of record for this project. Very challenging, very little money. This is a building that was built in 1887 as a police station. It was renovated as a first Institute of Contemporary Art in 1976, and then it became the Boston Architectural College. The ICA sold it to the Boston Architectural College and built a brand new facility on our waterfront. This was a challenging project because the client had very little money, and it was a challenge to us to use every one of our relationships and connections to get as much of the distinctive materials in this building donated as possible. And the goal of the owner was to really balance three things: historic preservation, which had largely been undone except for the facade in the renovation in 1976, maintain and enhance environmental sustainability, and introduce inclusive design. Next, please. So this had, as is typical of anything of that vintage, it had granite steps going up to the main entrance. And that was clearly not going to be something that we could sustain. We worked from the very beginning, right at concept, with the Architectural Commission for the Back Bay. And those granite steps, with their enthusiastic endorsement, became the new entry floor, which is a fully level entry. So we created a first floor at street level, and then a mezzanine. Next, please. And here you see the mezzanine. The lower level is a new entry lobby where we were able to actually add some aesthetic appeal and some distinctive wooden design features. This is in the upper right image. That is an image from the entry along a fully accessible slate walkway. The left side of that entrance is for exhibit of student work, and there is a downstairs entrance also to a meeting space. Next, please. Oh, one more. Sorry, I've completely ignored. We, at the client's agreement and with the blessing of the Historic Society, we opened the attic to make the third floor a glorious space that actually reproduces the wooden trusses of the original building. Next, please. And I want to credit an earlier presenter and my dear friend Coco Rains. If one wants really distinctive graphic features that are respectful of the historic environment, one of course goes to Coco Rains. And this was a sign that had to be pulled forward and away from the historic masonry of this building. And Coco designed a remarkable solution, which is the sign on the front of the building. Next, please. And this is our city hall, and I want to call out the fact that in our work around the United States, we are encountering more and more clients who have mid-century modern buildings that they are claiming, and in some cases, our National Historic Registry is claiming as historic properties that must be protected. So we are dealing with this situation frequently. Our own City Hall, built in 1963, is, I think, by any measure, one of the most hated and, primarily in architectural circles, one of the most treasured modern icons in the US. It's considered a brutalist masterpiece, and it is considered historic. Next, please. And this is a modest effort, but a modest effort in a really important space. This is where our city council meets. It's where our disability commission meets. It's where most public meetings occur. It is deep in the heart of the building. And it has been a place that people were frustrated and angry about for a very long time. In a typical brutalist model, it had cutout spaces. So there were 5 different heights of floor in this space. There is still, you can see in the second photo on the right, there is still a gallery area that is not fully accessible except in the front, but the main area, and that is where whoever is presiding sits and where people present, are now fully accessible. And it is intended to be reversible, and there was very careful decisions about the way the concrete was laid, but this original concrete flooring was filled in, and there was across the board agreement that this was the right thing to do. People have been extremely pleased with the effectiveness of this. Next, please. And my last, another nod to Saul Steinberg, yes, but. And we always deal with the yes, but in historic preservation and accessibility and inclusive design. We need to preserve our historic built environment that nurtures our souls. There is no alternative to that yes, but it must work for everyone. So thank you. And I will defer to my old friend, Regina Cohen, who I have not seen for a very long time, really looking forward to her presentation.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Just want to make a full disclosure. I came back from MIT 2 years ago. I had a fellowship there, and I was working for a while in City Hall. So I really love and admire this brutalist building. I know some people consider as the ugliest one. I want to make a note that it's quite impressive that humanity made such a big progress since the time, not from Roman time, from the 60s. This is quite amazing. So thank you so much.
Sharon. I'm very pleased that you have familiarity. I too, and we are actually fans of the building, always trying to make it better.
Cool. Okay, Regina, are you ready for the last presentation?
Yes, I'm ready. Many thanks again. I want the help to share my screen.
Sure, we can do that.
Many thanks again for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. Nice to meet you again, Valerie. And nice to remember the visit I did to Harvard University. And also nice to see the many experience here. And last but not least, an experience that remains in only plans some few examples in Brazilian historic cities. We are very slow in the evolution to universal design. I will show a few examples and the next one. So this is why I've chosen the title, Realities, Plans, or Utopia. We still have many dreams, but few examples, and I'll try to show what we are trying to do. The next one, please. This presentation offers a captivating angle and two important considerations: the need to make cities accessible for all and the preservation of our built heritage. Paraty is, I will show a few, only two slides, is beginning this year, 2024, Ouro Preto, Salvador. And if I have on the 12 minutes, the next slide, please. This is Paraty. Paraty was declared in 2019 also UNESCO Patrimony of Education and Culture, but still many barriers. And I went to Paraty many times. It's a very beautiful city, but completely inaccessible. They are trying to begin now the accessibility and this patrimony of UNESCO, of the United Nations, but it's very difficult to get. And a person who participated in the research says that Paraty is a patrimony historic city. Impossible, make it accessible. Oh, people, let's stop with this. The millenary Roman Coliseo has lifts and an accessible route for walking. Jerusalem, and now I'm looking for the example of Jerusalem. I've been 2 or 3 times in Israel, and I visited Jerusalem, and now it's better than better. And I'm planning to go next year again to make Aliyah maybe. Jerusalem is making ramps on sacred routes, but why these difficult pavements in Paraty without any aesthetic beauty, with many tourists, what they are untouchable. Please, the next one. And this is in my postdoc. I was searching for museums from the Patrimony. Paraty has 2 museums, and I needed all the time the help of a person to walk in this pavement. And when I looked for a solution, I talked with the responsible for the patrimony in Paraty, and they say, no, we are going to search for museums and not for the solution for the city. And I become very hungry, and you can pass the next one. I don't have too much time to explain all the history. And this year, Paraty is in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Brazil is a very big country. The state of Rio de Janeiro has 90 municipalities, more than 90, and plans are utopia. Things are going very slow, but they needed to go ahead with the plan, but things are going very slow. The next one, please. But a big project was made, a pilot project in the historic center of the city of Salvador. Salvador is a historic and very interesting city. You can pass the next one. Trying to find solutions. This is an overview of how is the city of Salvador. Many old buildings, many churches, many historical buildings. And the topography is also very difficult. The next one, please. And some barriers, the access to buildings. This is an environment, a building, almost all was like that, and the narrow sidewalks. The historic center of Salvador with the narrow sidewalk. The next one, please. And some years ago, they decided to put together many partners from the governor, from the civil society, persons with disability, and began a project in the city of Salvador, in the historic center of Salvador. And they did a project discussing with many persons and trying to have the support. The next one, please. First, designing accessible routes in the historic center of Salvador, and it was very difficult. The next one, please. And then finally, the first need to widening the sidewalks. The barriers were many, and they tried a lot to solve and to find solutions. The next one, please. They needed, when widening the sidewalks, they needed to give the access for the stories and buildings, and they needed to interrupt the work, and they were doing the work programmed in the project. The next one, please. And also a big problem was in the Patrimony Institute of Brazil didn't accept, was not accepting the solutions. And the solutions for the drainage of the rain needed to be changed. And this is the solution. So before and after in the right. Please, the next one. The time is very slow. Salvador has a center with important buildings from many years ago, and the pavement changed before. With the project, they tried to make a better pavement in the city, in the center of Salvador, with many. Salvador was also I need to explain to you that Brazil was colonized by Portugal, and in that time, the San Francisco church was dominating the city and didn't want anything to be done there. But things are changing slowly. And here is a very simple example. The sidewalk they could do, enlarge the sidewalk in the left side, in the right side is getting from that ramp to an important building. Jorge Amado was a very great writer, very known, and this is the access to the house of Jorge Amado, a very great writer in the past. And as everything that happens in Brazil, South America, Latin America, many countries here, the reunion, the meeting of the civil society, persons with disability, policymakers, and also a political, this is a political marketing. The governor went there to the first presentation of the solutions being done in the city of Salvador. And just to tell you that I interrupt the two cities to show the museum Petrópolis in the city of Petrópolis. Petrópolis was an imperial city with a very big museum, the Imperial Museum, a very big and beautiful museum. We lived the Imperial Dom Pedro Imperial of Brazil, and there is a museum of the rooms and everything that pertains to the imperial family. But this small museum is a museum of Santos Dumont. Santos Dumont was a person that created the solution, the first solution for planes in it was a very simple solution that evolved to a better one. But as you can see, when I went to visit, they wanted me to find a solution. It was very difficult. You can see in the middle, the stairs. I was carried on my wheelchair, just to tell you that I have a disability, moving on wheelchair, and I was very afraid to be carried on that stairs. So, and what they did in this museum was first the tactile mock-ups and finding solutions. They built, they could find a place to build a lift there. It was a very great solution, more than a big museum that I told you before. You can, The next one, please.
Regina, Regina, I'm so sorry that I have to interrupt you.
Oh, I want to
but our
show
time is really
Ouro
up.
Preto. You can pass this and just to show Ouro Preto.
Okay,
The museum you can pass.
beautiful.
And this is the city of Ouro Preto. Ouro Preto is a very beautiful city. Like Minas Gerais, we have many historical cities. And the next one, please. The barriers are many, so go on. I don't have time. But as a title of my presentation, Dreams, Utopia, this is a plan. They build a plan, a mobility plan for Ouro Preto that was never be realized, has never realized, but is still a dream. And the next one, part of the dream, part of the utopia of Ouro Preto, a very beautiful city.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just the last sentence, please.
Okay.
Can I read the sentence only?
Okay.
Because it's something to explain you that the difficulties we find here, to have hope, this is what we are looking for in Brazil, is necessary imagine when projecting for the next decades, opening incredible horizons that enchant and excite. The both can create new utopias. Who can believe in the description of the electric bus they planned with low floor and large windows? Don't want to take the vehicle, watching with comfort all the historical buildings and the spectacular scenery of Ouro Preto. The art has the role of disturbing, emotionation, subverting. More than the simple aesthetics, has also the political role. It needs to stimulate dreams and work with feelings. This is the message that I want to give you, that this is what our dream in Brazil, in the historic cities of Brazil. So sorry for the time.
No,
I
it
wanted
was
to say
wonderful.
more. We find many difficulties and we have many beautiful historical cities, but
Let me just turn now to Sharon, who will probably want to say goodbye.
I want to say goodbye. I want to say thank you so much for everybody and great presentation. We didn't have time for questions, although I have some questions, so I'm saving myself the option to address you in private. Thank you so much for your presentation.